Hey guys, I hope you're having a great day. So, like I promised last video, I am going to be talking about the Protestant Reformation, especially specifically in England, or I guess you could call it the British Empire by this point. And if I have time at the end, maybe I'll start to get into the conquesting and the finding of the New World by Christopher Columbus. So, first of all, off the bat, in King Henry VIII was, although he was a very bad person overall, that is already established, we have to realize that King Henry VIII, in terms of policy, he was a very reformist person. He did a great job allowing Wales into the Congress. He did a great job of allowing Congress to have a little more power. However, the most important thing that he probably is remembered for, besides the head cutting, of course, is that he split the churches. This was kind of the first major, like, official church splitting. I know that at this point there was the Orthodox and there was the Catholic Church. However, Catholic was still by far the majority, and Orthodox was only mainly in modern day Russia and the Byzantine Empire still at this point. It didn't really spread anywhere else. So if we look at Europe now, I just kind of explained the situation. It's all Catholic, and that's how it's been for a fairly certain long point, and it's been very status quo, and it doesn't really ever seem like that's going to change. However, the Crusades hit, and religious morale is getting a little lower, and then pop into the picture King Henry VIII. King Henry VIII was never not supposed to be on the throne. He was originally supposed to have church and religious dealings. That's what he studied as a young boy. And that led him to have a very different outlook on religion than most other rulers. In terms at this time, religion was a very big part of the church. Like I've talked about, in many countries, there is a power circle that emerges of the popes and the cardinals and just the overall religious figures are usually somehow influenced by rulers. However, the rulers are crowned upon by the pope. So who really does have the power? And that's been a question that a lot of people are asking. However, King Henry VIII inadvertently answers the question, at least for England's sake, that he's taking the power in his own hand by creating a new church. This church being, of course, the Protestant church. And the Protestant church allowed for a very interesting emergence of a new religion being created off the basis of we're better than the last guys. Specifically, divorce laws. That is the real sense of this. Of course, King Henry VIII wasn't thinking, I'm taking over the cycle. He still feels like he's being chosen by God to rule his country. However, he did in fact he did inadvertently change his view of God and his entire country's view of God up to this point. And doing that, it really shows an interesting scenario in the school of thought. This move that King Henry VIII did could have either worked out very well or very badly, and he paid off very well. Thinking about it, you're asking your people to go against the religion that their fathers were, that their grandfathers were, and that their great grandfathers were, and so on. So to suggest a massive change like this was extremely huge, and it does, however, pay off though. So to say King Henry VIII's situation, it does eventually allow for a lot of other smaller, you could say, countries to think this Protestant thing as, hey, it's a good thing. It seems more. I would like to think about the Protestant as a union against the Catholic Church. A bunch. So think of the Catholic Church as a factory worker, right? It's the traditional, it's the long hours, little pay. That's kind of what the Catholic Church is about. They have, I imagine at this time, I think they had something similar to the Lord's tax, where you worked a certain amount of hours just for the pockets of the cardinals and the religious figures. However, now Protestantism is looking a lot better. It's out there. It of course looks like a union in the analogy I'm giving. It's saying that hey, we'll stand up for your rights. We'll do all this and that, and they eventually just go to the same cycle that Catholicism did. And that is another very thing to point on. You would see a lot in history, not like even leaving the medieval age and going up to modern age and way back to the Roman Empire. You would see that usually when a cause starts out very well, you see that cause slowly and slowly start to dissemble and get more corrupt and get more lenient until eventually it's becoming the evil that it promised to defeat. Examples of this is like Christianity. You would have Christianity originally being a very noble cause for freedom against the tyrannical Roman Empire. However, as soon as it becomes the major religion, then you see a lot of corruption in the cardinal classes, and the popes being also corrupt in the process and very influential, being paid off very easily. Obviously not in the work of God. So, to sum up what this is saying, well, changing your religion, especially from the perspective of King Henry VIII, is a very risky move. However, King Henry VIII was influential and his acceptance rate was high enough for him to be accepted upon. And it also did work out very well for the Englanders in the end, because it made the rivalry between the UK and France that much more. It allowed for the UK and France to become even more rivals, not just based on let's see who's going to be the best civilization, but now it's based on which god is the best. So allowing another aspect into it is certainly going to make things more tense. Okay, I just hit the 7-minute mark on this topic, so I think I'm going to switch over to now the New World. So, pass some time with King Henry VIII, and eventually we'll get to Christopher Columbus. Pretty common story that we see. He goes out to sea, he in the name of Spain, he goes out to sea, finds an island, this island being modern-day Hispaniola, and it allows for a lot of colonization, as we know, in the story. However, what we see the government type in New World is very similar to the one back in the Old World. However, not the Greek school of thought, though. Only the Egyptian. In the Egyptian, we see the Egyptian school of thought seem like it's the default and primary way of thinking now. And now, what may have seemed like an original rivalry between the Greek and the Egyptian school of thought, we see now that the Egyptian school of thought is definitely the base way for the entire world up to this point. And the Greek school of thought was more of a fluke than anything else. Now, the Egyptian school of thought we see here, we see Tenochtitlan, Montezuma. Montezuma, of course, also, in his mind, he was chosen by the gods, and in his way, he was, quote-unquote, brainwashed into believing that he was going to do best for the Aztecs. And in their right, they put up a very good fight against the Spaniards. However, superior weapons and superior firepower are the usual deciding factor of a battle, and this case being no different. So, race forward a little bit, and you see a very interesting case where the concept of authoritarianism and newtonianism combine. Most likely, you've never heard of what newtonianism means, and this is because I made the term up. There is no legitimate source that I've ever found that to say the words that I have specifically. However, I think it's a very important phrase to use, especially when you put the word social in front of it. Social Newtonianism is based off of Newton's third law, and that law being every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I'll give an example. So let's say Portugal, if you're a Spaniard, Portugal has a new way to get to India. It's a faster way, and it's a more efficient way. So now your mind is going to start to desire to find an even faster way and even more efficienter way. And this is the main drive and cause of progress in the medieval ages. It's trying to be the best at everything, at speed, at efficiency, and at overall mass in total. So the concept of social Newtonianism is definitely the thing to look here in the founding of the New World and the carving up of the two continents. We see Spain take a lot of it, mainly because they were the first one, however, to lose money of it later. However, France and England both take note and say, we want colonies too, due to social Newtonianism. However, I am a little bit over 10 minutes now, so I'm going to stop here. Thank you for listening. Next episode, I'm going to get more into this and see what else I can talk about. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.